Amy literally saves my life. My parents had their accounting firm. My mom was a teacher before that. She was the first person in her family to go to college, much less graduate. So, just like most people in my generation, most of y'all here, I was expected. You're going to go to college. I didn't want to go. Finally, I acquiesced, went to college, went to Oklahoma State, joined a fraternity, and had a shitload of fun. I had so much fun. My fraternity had to assign somebody to make sure I didn't go to jail or end up in a ditch somewhere because I didn't know when to shut it off. I would party 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't remember anything from 10 o'clock the night before. Your eyes got big. Yeah, I was that guy. I was searching. I was trying to search for how was I going to be important? How was I going to make a difference? Um, and I was empty. Um, a semester and a half into college, I had to have a conversation with my parents that I was leaving school. Didn't tell them this, but I was already at the point halfway through my second semester, I was going to fail every class. I had no way. I talked to my professors. There was no way I was going to be able to make up the stuff that I had done. I was going to fail. After I told my parents that I was leaving college and I was going to enlist in the Marine Corps, to somebody who has a very poor self image, that is, oh man, that hurt. So I paid, back then I think I made like $800 a month at boot camp. I paid for my parents to fly out to San Diego to see me graduate for boot camp. Just kind of give them the finger, hey, screw you, I did it. I'm not, I'm not a failure. I chose the Marine Corps because who has the hardest boot camp?
Air Force.
Y'all have boot camp? I thought y'all go on just vacations. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. That's what it was. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. Any challenge I really set myself up for and said, I want to do this, I have conquered. But I always felt like I had to prove it to myself. I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps, just shy of 5 years in the Marine Corps. I was med boarded out, medical discharge, hurt my shoulder, and spent a few years in Okinawa, or a few years, about a year out in California, a few years in Okinawa, and had changed duty stations from Okinawa, Japan to Cherry Point, North Carolina. Had surgery on my shoulder in October of '02. Does anybody remember what happened in February, March of '03? We invaded Iraq. My unit deployed. In the beginning of February, I went to a follow-up with my surgeon, and I was like, "Hey, I'm great. I can do everything. See, and I'm just kind of showing off. I'm good." He comes back in, looks at me, leaves, comes back in. I have good news. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to deploy with my boys. That's what we want to do, right? You can start doing pull-ups." What the? I don't want to do pull-ups. I want to go to war with my brothers. No, not going to happen. So my unit deployed to Iraq, short a man, and I had to stay home. Nobody from my unit was injured. There was nothing crazy happened, thank God. But not being there for my brothers when they went to, I mean, we didn't know what was going to happen at that point. We didn't know it was going to be an easy push in for the most part. Let me take a step back. First time I remember thinking about suicide, I was in fourth grade. Why, I don't remember. What the hell can be so bad when you're in fourth grade, but something seemed that bad. And I know that because a year or so ago, I found an old journal, which, again, who the hell in fourth grade keeps a journal? I did for a short while. And I wrote in the journal about how I was going to kill myself and what I wanted done with my baseball cards. So my future nephew would know what I'm like. Things that go through our mind. But in fourth grade, I was considering suicide. We all have that thought. Most of us will never admit it. We all have that thought from some time to another. How bad it is varies. But after I couldn't deploy, I came really, really close to the end of my life. I felt absolutely useless. I felt like a failure. What really kept me from, and I was married at that point. I was in my first marriage and had a stepson. It's a horrible marriage. But the only thing that kept me from committing suicide at that point was fear of failure of doing that. Well, what if I try to commit suicide and I fail? How much of a fuck up? Sorry for my language, everybody. How much of a fuck up am I at that point? I can't even do that right. I get out of the Marine Corps November of 2003, November 30th. Moved back to Oklahoma with my dysfunctional marriage. And I'm home for about 6 months, and I don't fit in. I'm having a hard time adjusting to normal life. And man, contracting jobs were coming up in Iraq. I could make some good money. I may die. I can't even get a life insurance policy because I'm going over there, but hey, let's do it. So I spend about the next 2 years contracting overseas. Spent a year in Iraq, then spent about a year in Afghanistan, a little bit of time in the Philippines. And halfway through that, went through my divorce. I had a stepson, but no kids between the two of us. We had no assets because while I was over there making good money, but in a war zone, my cars were stolen. Had some other stuff going on. Found out later they weren't stolen. My ex-wife just stopped paying car payments. Blew every single dime I had. So the divorce, legal-wise, was very easy. Internally, it was just ripping me apart. Not because of losing her or anything like that. I knew it was the best decision, but thank God, that's like the biggest promise you make. And I'm failing at that, and I'm walking away from that. I filed for divorce. So you can imagine I'm in a pretty shitty spot over there, right? We get fired on sometimes, and I mean, there's this and that, but it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me at all. It's like, I'll just stay over here as long as I can. Rockets come in, great. I got in trouble once when I was in Iraq because mortars came in, and it's like, well, if they hit me, they're going to hit me. I mean, it doesn't matter, so I'm just going to keep working on top of this building. And I got in trouble. I'm like, come on. I was just going to stay over there forever. It didn't matter. Sorry, I keep forgetting to change these. Just a few picks in here. Obviously, my boot camp pick. Then this pick was me at the beginning of my goatee phase that I had back then. Brought it back a year or so ago, but that's me in Afghanistan. About 2 months before I actually met my now wife. I spent Christmas Day in that hooch, getting drunk, smoking cigars, didn't care. I meet Amy. Amy literally saves my life. We have a 22 and a half hour date. I had to do some work in Hawaii for Special Operations Command Pacific. I was coming back through the U.S. on my way back to Afghanistan. I had a layover, got them to put me in Oklahoma City. She picked me up. I met her for the first time in person. Long story on how we met through our mothers. Then she takes me to go surprise my parents. And she drops me back off at the hotel at the airport the next morning. And I was hooked. Everything in my mind started changing. Everything that I was thinking about started changing. She did not ask me to come home. She never would have done that.